All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. All right, well, welcome everyone. Excited to have you here today. We've got a really cool webinar set up with some really great guests that are going to share a lot of really great recommendations, best practice, and have a really good discussion around registration. We have a little bit of a different structure today. So we have a group of presenters that we'll get to in just a minute here. But all told, this webinar will probably run about 45 minutes. Our first half with our panel discussion and a second half with a demonstration of setting up a registration in TeamSnap. But before I get started, a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is hosted by TeamSnap, which means we have the chat and questions will be answered by our incredible customer success managers. So they're here. If you want to provide some comments and interact with others, use the chat for that. If you've got a specific question, I would encourage you to use the question feature in GoToWebinar here. That will be responded to. But before we get started with our panel discussion, you've seen my face. I've been on the last couple webinars. My name's Jim, and I'm a Director of Product Marketing and Strategy here at TeamSnap. Spent the last 10 years or so in this industry working on youth sports platforms. In my free time, like many of you, I am a Director of Youth Development at a local hockey club. I'm a coach at another hockey association. And in the middle of winter, I'm commissioner for a pond hockey championship that happens here in Minneapolis. Before we get started, I want to just welcome those who have also been a part of multiple webinars. We've had a few the last couple months, and we've really focused on getting prepared for the next season. We looked at getting set up with new programs in seasons in TeamSnap for clubs and leagues. And we also talked a little bit about updating the website and what do we got to do to promote those programs to make sure we're collecting signups. The third thing that we've made reference to is to make sure that we wrap up that registration and get that live. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. For many of you who have worked with either a sales rep here at TeamSnap or your customer success manager, you may have seen this graphic, and I want to just remind everybody that what we're looking at in this preparation process for a season is going to be this registration, collecting, and getting all of our data, information, everything put together so that we can get our teams put together, get our rosters put together, put them available inside the app so we can share schedules and so that they can get rocking and rolling. So this is what we're going to be primarily focused on today, is this part of the process, creating forms, collecting payments, getting that all set up. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our panelists today. First, I want to introduce Rose Gums from Justify. Fun fact, Rose and I have worked together for the better part of a decade, now at different places, but still talking about getting set up in youth sports. So Rose, would love to have you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about Justify, what you do there, and maybe your favorite memory from participating in youth sports.
Thanks so much, Jim. Hi, everybody. I'm Rose Gums. I'm the Director of Customer Success at Justify. At Justify, we are a payments and embedded fintech solution that specifically works with vertical SaaS platforms and really works to accelerate their potential from startups all the way through to multi-billion-dollar companies. So made the switch, worked in the sports and sports tech space for over a decade, and then moved over to fintech in this past year. Absolutely loving it. Favorite sports memory, though, I grew up playing a myriad of them between golf and basketball and tennis and track, but I'm a big golfer, so I think for me it's just the lifelong friendships that you create with the sports that you play. I've got a group of girls, we play every Thursday night, and it's a blast.
I'm sure that team with your zero handicap does pretty well during leagues or when you're out there, but hopefully having fun as well.
Absolutely.
Also, really excited to introduce Corey Harris from Focus on the Field. Focus on the Field has been just a great partner for TeamSnap because of how well they take care of so many of our shared customers. They work across so many other platforms as well, but are really focused on organizations being successful. So thanks again, Corey. Welcome. Same thing, maybe a little bit about yourself, Focus on the Field, and your favorite memory being a part of youth sports.
Yeah, definitely. Well, great to meet everyone. My name is Corey Harris. I'm co-founder here at Focus on the Field. And Focus on the Field essentially operates as an outsourced admin for youth sports organizations. And probably the simplest way to describe what we do is we take on all the admin tasks that parent volunteers and club directors don't want to do. And the goal of that is to take on, registration, uniform order, reserving fields, answering the countless parent emails, so that those club directors and parent volunteers can focus their attention on growing the club and some of those higher level strategic initiatives. That being said, we use TeamSnap for a lot of our clients. We are a national company that serves clubs of all sizes and sports throughout the country. So we've pretty much seen everything under the sun when it comes to opening up registration. So, we're excited to share some of our best practices here. In terms of best youth sports memories, I would say, going along with what Rose said, it really is about the people and the relationships you create. But, if I have to chalk up to one memory, I'll probably have to go with the 6th grade youth football championship. So as funny as that sounds, yeah, first thing that comes to mind.
And I would recommend, first of course, check out Focus on the Field website, go to the About Us. You can see pictures. Corey, you must have been 10, 11 maybe in your photo. One of the coolest ways to introduce your staff. So go check that out. Thanks for being here. And to round out our introductions, April Eastburn, who is a colleague of mine here at TeamSnap, and it's an understatement to really say that April's an absolute wizard when it comes to using TeamSnap. If there's questions, solutions, what do I need to set up? That's the first place I go. But April, why don't you introduce yourself as well, a little bit about what you do during the day here, and then your favorite memory as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I think wizard might be a little extreme, but I'm the Senior Manager of Customer Experience here at TeamSnap, and I spend my day working with our support team and then our development and engineering teams, product teams, kind of talking about voice of the customer and what customers are wanting and needing and what we're hearing from them. So fun. I love that part of my job. I've been at TeamSnap for about 5.5 years. Before that, I was actually a customer of TeamSnap, still a customer of TeamSnap, managed my daughter's soccer team and took over a board position about 1 year ago. So use both the team product and our sport product. So definitely have my own ideas on that information I'm sharing with our product team as well. Favorite memory, I grew up playing volleyball, and so my daughter playing soccer, my son playing football, it's allowed me to really learn different sports and kind of more than just an appreciation of watching them. And so probably the first time I was actually able to explain offside to somebody, I was very proud of myself. So good memory.
Yeah, I'm still not sure that I fully understand what that is, so maybe I'll check with you after this. But let's go ahead and get started. Thanks again, everyone, for the time today, and for those who are joining in to listen. But as I noted, the first part of our webinar today is really going to focus on best practice. So all of you, I'm really looking for, just our recommendations. What are we doing? What have your experience, and even with customers? So Corey, I'm going to start with you. When working with an organization on a high level who's setting up for next season, what are some of the things that you recommend to start planning for? When should that kick off? If I've got a season that starts July 1st, when am I starting to plan that, and when do I go live with the registration?
Yeah, definitely. I'll first start off by saying there's no one size fits all, but it's definitely sooner the better. So we recommend about 4 to 5 months ahead of your season start date is a good time to open up registration. That being said, there's about 3 phases we identify. So first is the prep phase, where you want to collect all the key pieces of information you'll need that'll influence the upcoming season. So pricing, what did you charge last year? Have field costs gone up? Have the uniform costs gone up? When do you want to open and close the registration? Has your overarching league changed their start date? Are they starting games earlier, later? And then, other aspects such as what teams you'll be fielding. That being said, when you aggregate all this information, the biggest speed bump we see in the process is almost analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, to where you have too many cooks in the kitchen. What I recommend is aggregate all this information, send it to them of, hey, here's what we charged last year. Here's the information that's permanent for this year. Here's what I recommend, and that'll speed up the process a lot. Second phase here is physically building out the registration. TeamSnap, and I'll let April dive deeper into this, but TeamSnap does a really good job of making it easy for you. The big recommendation we have here is registration is the holy grail for collecting data and information on your players. So really take some time and think ahead of when you open registration of what data do you find important. It's important that you know who the new players are. It's important that you know how the new players found you. Asking simple questions of how did you hear about us? What was your previous club or rec program are absolutely vital to making sure you have all the information to when you go on to this third stage, which I think is the most fun and where, you know, club directors and volunteers are spending most of their time is the marketing and getting creative with growing your club. That being said, you know, some of the best practices we've seen is creating urgency through early bird pricing. So say if everyone registers by, you know, August 1st, you'll get $100 off. Or, you know, really promoting the word of mouth advertising or refer a friend program is something that we've seen and we've implemented with a lot of our clients. And then, you know, a really, really helpful tool is identifying advocates in your local PTAs as well as schools. So, you know, one thing I'll say on the onset is it is very difficult to get that information in the schools, but if you do have an advocate in the secretary office or on the PTA, that can make a huge impact in getting you registered. So just to sum it up, prep, get all the information you'll need. 2, physically build out the registration and be pretty deliberate in how you do it and what information you want to collect. And then 3 is the fun part, is marketing and growing the club.
Yeah, that's one thing I wrote down there actually is about not just thinking about what you're collecting maybe for that season, but some of that, how did you find us? Where did you learn about it, to maybe rethink about your outreach? You'd mentioned like 4 or 5 months. Rose, I'm gonna jump over to you quick. Is that something that, you know, in your experience in working with it, like that seems like a long lead time, right? It seems like people are sort of thinking about it. Maybe myself has been guilty of that as well, maybe waiting a little bit later. Is that what you would recommend or see as well, like a 4-month lead time? And is there any really challenges or problems with opening it up that far in advance?
I think that is absolutely a great lead time. I think it's amazing how fast time goes once you start going into those. So, you know, Corey talked about those different phases, and that first piece about just figuring out all the information that you want to put into your registration, that can take a few board meetings, which could be a month or 2. And then all of a sudden you're trying to build it really quickly. Well, once you build it, then you want to test it too. You want to have a few people go through. You want to make sure that the board feels comfortable. You probably want to have a few parents go through as well to ensure that everything is running smoothly. Well, that could be another month or 2. And then all of a sudden it's time for the registration to open. And we haven't even gotten to the marketing piece that Corey talked about. So I think, you know, giving yourself a solid 6 months where you're starting to think about next season is a good way to stay on top of it. Because we all know, like, as it's coming, summer's coming to a close and it's time for back to school, like, where did the last 3 months go? We don't know. It happens with everything that if you put it to the side, all of a sudden your deadline will creep up. So I completely agree with that 4-month lead time. If you can stretch it out a little bit more, that's great, because that does give you the time to really work through and double check the details, which are really important with registration.
All right, April, I'm gonna give you the chance to pile on with that. Some really great like ideas and recommendations. And specifically with, you know, TeamSnap customers being in that world, is it any different than that, or is that something that we carry that same recommendations?
Definitely the same recommendation. That's one of the biggest drivers of ticket volume that we have right now is people that open their registration and they're like, oh, this isn't working how I thought it would. One of my favorite features we have is our preview mode in registration. And I encourage everybody, every time we talk to them, to use that. It allows you to go through and do it exactly as your customers and as your members are going to go through that registration. So you can see exactly what they're going to, you know, it's going to look like, how it's going to flow, how, you know, something may not link to the way that you wanted it to. It gives you the opportunity to really just kind of go through that entire process and then make changes and edits as you need to. You know, encourage your board, encourage your coaches, anybody who has kids in the program to do the registration kind of ahead of time and just make sure that all the kinks are worked out. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually add one thing. This last season was the first, and the hockey club I have in the summer here has a tryout registration, and so the kids register for a tryout, and then we have an invite with another registration. I actually opened the tryout registration on the second day starting the season, which is like even further, I think, in advance. But what I've just learned is that, you know, almost immediately there's some anxiety, we missed out, I'm interested, and I just say, here's the link, just go there, register, and for sure you'll be in for next year. So there's, yeah, I 4, 5, 6 months, like especially with the planning process and getting it there, people to plan and talk about it. There's really not a lot of harm in doing that. But let's move on to our next topic here. And Rose, I'm going to pick on you next because we're going to talk about payments. So one of the most important things during the sign-up process, right, is making sure that you're collecting fees, and there's a lot that goes into that. So it also seems to be one of the largest expenses in deciding to go with a platform, a youth sports platform to manage all of this stuff, right? What am I paying in fees? How does this work? And rates really do matter. So Rose, let's start with you. If an organization's just getting started, right, and maybe looking to figure out how to do payments online and collect those payments for fees online, what are the things that they should be thinking about? What is the topics, the research, and making considerations that they should do in selecting a provider for their platform and thus their payments?
Oh, I could talk about this all day. But the first thing to do is really look at the fees that are being charged, because that is something that varies from provider to provider. It could be a per transaction fee. It could be an overarching SaaS fee. But you want to make sure that you are choosing a provider that works best for your organization. And then I would look at the different fees that go into what that provider is charging, because there are some hidden fees, and there are areas that people could get caught up, whether that is a fee, per transaction, regardless of if it's done on credit card or done via ACH. That's a good one to look at. And then truly compare rates from one provider to the next. I would really encourage, I know it's a bit of work, but when you are choosing a provider, do a mock season and say, well, we're anticipating that 1,000 kids are going to sign up, and 1,000 kids at $100 is going to end up being X amount in your fees, and do that quick math, because that's really going to help you anticipate what's going to happen throughout. And then by the end of the season, when you are tallying up, here is our revenue, you're not surprised by any misses there, because that's really what we don't want to see in youth sports is, hey, you get towards the end of the season and you're $5,000 short of what you anticipated to be at because of fees, and that really hurts the kids, and nobody wants that.
Right. And just to go back really quick, you mentioned ACH. For those who are maybe new into what this is, can you just describe what ACH means?
Yeah, so that is the ability to pay by check online, which we are seeing as an option now, and it's that fee is much lower than a credit card fee. So if somebody does choose to pay by check online, that's called ACH, and we're seeing that more commonly used now.
Right. So like a bank to bank transfer, and for I don't, on our platform, we see it's about 10%, some a little higher, some a little lower, but overall the payments across TeamSnap are about 10%. Corey, going over to you, when advising organizations and talking with them, there's also sort of a risk management conversation, right? I can remember going into a board meeting, one of my first for a club I was on a board with, and one of our first discussions was our tournament revenue maybe wasn't at the same point. We actually found it, but it was some checks that just didn't make its way right to the bank. So we had, a challenge there. We ended up getting it, but we had to look for it and we didn't quite know. Is that, a discussion that you have, that there's a safety, visibility, transparency in how the fees are collected and moving around?
Yeah, definitely. I think Rose hit the nail on the head there in terms of looking at all the fees, not just to the organization, but to the players themselves. Just to give the audience some helpful context, let's focus on the field. We are software agnostic, meaning we don't just use TeamSnap, we use other software platforms. That being said, it gives us the opportunity to see what they're offering, and there's a reason why we recommend our clients to a select few, such as TeamSnap. But something you'll commonly see is the first setup fee or the fee to get you on board may be smaller. But on the back end, what you'll see is there's a few other percentage points in terms of the transaction fees passed on to your registrants. That can be a really big deal to some of these families. So I think a general trend you're seeing in these for-profit clubs is an annual model where they loop together, their fall and summer season. And, we're seeing these fees get pretty high, in the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 range. And that extra 1 to 2% that you're charging your families can have a huge difference. So that's the one thing I would recommend, is just piggybacking on what Rose said, is really look hard at all the fees they're charging you, not just the upfront cost, which may be $100 or $200 cheaper than another platform, but really look at what fees they're passing on to the players and their families, just because that can have a significant impact on the total cost they're paying for your club.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit, but I heard sort of affordability, and something that's really important to me and is becoming more and more important, it feels like, is accessibility. Like, how do we not just make more programs available to more athletes that have different abilities, but money is a topic there as well, right? Like, making programs accessible is sometimes also making them affordable. Talk about that a little bit, April or Rose or Corey, anyone, about, is that an opportunity for like payment plans that maybe break it up a little bit more? What are some of the strategies to sort of make these programs more affordable, in particular if you're doing what Corey just talked about and the trends he's seeing, that, a bigger ticket items and more programs are becoming more and more expensive?
Yeah, absolutely. Installment plans are huge. Payment plans. One thing I always recommend as part of the registration process is, talk with your treasurer and find out exactly like when you need funds coming in and, how you can possibly break those up. TeamSnap provides a lot of different options for how you can set up your installment payments. And so, you can do them on monthly, bi-weekly, you can, set exact dates. I know with my daughter's club, we collect a certain amount in the fall, and then we collect more in the spring. And so there's kind of this section around the holidays and Christmas where we're not collecting money from you because we know that you have other expenses during that time. And so it's really nice that we have that option available.
Yeah, that's a great point. Setting up when payment draws happen, and being sensitive to some of the times of year, or even during the month where, not everyone's on a 15th and 31st pay schedule, but a lot of people are. So maybe consider the 16th or the 2nd to be past those draws, where the 14th might not be the best day of doing that. Anything to add to that, Rose?
Yeah, I think that, what April was saying in regards to figuring out from a financial standpoint when your club needs that money, that's very important. And that goes back to what we were talking about from a lead time as you're prepping your registration. Having those conversations about when the club needs the money is all part of that discussion. So I really encourage payment plan installments, because when you look at, say, $1,000 sign up to play hockey this year, $1,000 is a big hit in a month. If you're able to spread that out, in 5 months, and it's $200 a month, a family is going to be able to figure that out a lot easier. And it's all about getting kids on the field or on the ice or on the pitch or wherever it might be. And that's a way that as an organization, you can impact that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I was going to say, I'll put it on there. Exactly what April and Rose were saying, installment plans are a really great option. Make sure to communicate those with your families before even tryout registration. One thing we're seeing with, a lot of families will disqualify a club, or even, the prospect of joining a club just by seeing the fees and getting intimidated by, the amount of money they'd have to pay up front. So we really find communication is key here. Of when you are publishing that tryout information, make it really evident that, you have the options to pay in installments of, $200 or $300 at this date, and then 3 months down the road and another 3 months down the road. But that's a trend we've seen, is just some families will just disqualify a club based off of strictly intimidation of the price tag. So make it very evident. TeamSnap has the tools to have that installment plan really easily set up. Just make sure you're advertising that to your families.
Right. And I know I wanted to sort of target the 30 minutes past the hour here to jump over to our demo. But before I do that, Corey, I want to go back to a topic you were talking a little bit about earlier, which was to pass off the fees or to not, right? And that seems to be a discussion and a preference. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to that. But I'm just going to go around just kind of our last discussion of the morning here. What do you recommend? What are some of the thoughts? When is it better than others to, and what I'm talking about is the fee to actually process the payment. Are you passing that off directly in addition to what their program fees, or are you as the organization paying those out of the fees that you collect? So why don't we start, Corey, I'm gonna start with you. It was your topic. What are some of the things and considerations that you recommend when working with an organization about that decision?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a conversation. It's not a one-size-fits-all issue. I will say with the portfolio focus on the field clients is we see pretty much, I want to say 100% of our clients actually pass that fee on to the families. That being said, I think something our clients do a really good job of is making that information transparent. I think you guys will see a theme in kind of what we found as the critical aspects of focus on the field of running a successful club is communication and transparency. So I think just in terms of from a straight revenue standpoint for the club, it makes a lot of sense to pass it on to the families. But that being said, there's some things you need to do beforehand, whether that is potentially lowering what those fees are that you're collecting in anticipation of what that upcharge is going to be for the transaction fees, or just making parents really aware of when they see the extra $20 on there, $30 on there, it's due to the transaction fee and the convenience of not having to submit it by check and paper registrations and those things.
Right. How about you, Rose? I think you might have another opinion, a different side, which is awesome.
No, I think it's a different way of looking at it. Kind of what Corey was saying when he was saying potentially lowering the fee for people as they're going through. Another option that I think is a successful one is building in that fee, that the transaction fee into the overall, say, season fee registration. So if the transaction fee is going to be $15, adding $15 to the total that is that's being taken on by the parent. So upping it from $200 to $215, and hopefully in that way too, if you're offering payment plans, allows that again to be stretched out and hopefully isn't too big of an issue there. But I think back and I use kind of the StubHub model as an example. When I go into StubHub and I see a ticket for $100, I'm like, okay, this is a good deal, great seats. And then you go in and by the end of it, you're charged $140 and you're like, well, this isn't what I signed up for. I thought, my budget was 100, this said 100. Now I got to go find a seat that's $60. So I think I would encourage building it into it, and then parents are seeing one flat fee and it makes it a little bit easy to digest. Otherwise you do have to, like Corey said, be extremely transparent so that your parents and registrants understand what they're paying for.
For sure. I'm gonna sort of let you know that I've done both and both seem to be sometimes where parents are fine with that. They're like, oh, I see the season, I see the fees, and I pay it. And sometimes they just prefer to do it all in, one and not look at the itemized. So there's not going to be the correct answer, the right answer. Probably the right answer is what works best for you, and maybe look at what your fees are on that. April, before we jump over to our demo, I'm going to grab a question here. Someone had asked that they want all online payments. That's good. Checks are a major hassle to collect from experience, but we need the ability to set up a discount for financial assistance. How do we set that up? That's something I think we can actually do in a registration. And if I remember right, had a note to even show what that might look like.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
something someone could do?
It definitely is something we can do. Yeah, we'll show it in the demo.
So let's, that might be a good cue for us to jump over. Corey, Rose, I said 30 minutes. I'd love for you to stick around. If you had other commitments, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I am going to go ahead and share my screen, but thanks for being here. If we don't get to see you at the end, but we're gonna jump over to our demo now. All right. And April, if you can confirm here that I got our program screen up.
You do, yep.
Perfect. So just a reminder, I think the last webinar that we had, we were talking through about setting up seasons, getting those going. We've done some additional work, and I wanted to just start here because creating a new season is so simple in the new Clubs and Leagues app. And I'm gonna actually just title this one Winter 2022. And I could start fresh, but this is a continuation from the last season. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create that, and I'm there. I've created all the setup, my configuration, and I'm ready to get started on my registration. It couldn't be easier, could it?
It's like magic. It's so simple.
Magic wizards, as we talked about. So as you see, I brought over my divisions. Those exist in there if I was to navigate through. So let's go ahead and set up our registration form. And here's what I would love for you to do. help remind me the absolute things to remember and walk through. But I'm creating my new registration form for that season. I noticed first and foremost, there's some templates here.
Yeah.
Where do I decide if this is my first time in building this?
Yeah, it's really kind of what information do you need? So the basic template is just that. It's really, really basic. We're basically asking for name, email, and that's about it. This is a great one to use when, like we personally in my club use this one for, we sell raffle tickets for different things. And so this is the form that I pull up because all I need is your name, your email, and how many raffle tickets you want. That's it. Makes it super, super simple. For the, what do we have in there? The standard. Standard is kind of what TeamSnap lists as the basic. It has kind of those basic fields like address, phone number, parent information, just kind of all those standard basic, demographic things that we would need. The standard in custom, that's going to be any custom field you've already built. So if you're copying over a form from a previous season, you've already set up a bunch of custom fields in your organization, this is going to pull all those in for you automatically so that you don't have to sit there and pick and choose which ones you want.
So I think a couple of things we want to show today, we're going to use the custom. So that's what we're going to go with, that template really quick and get that set up. So once I go ahead and name that, I'll be in the sort of setup area, right? And I've got a sort of a workflow at the top that we're going to go through. And as you can see, this is where I've got much of my demographic information that's there. A couple of things, like I've set, so up. What's that?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, yeah, this is a great spot to just kind of see that overview of what everything is and decide, do I want all these fields? Do I need all these fields? You can set required and optional, take them off. I
Yeah,
think
so
the default is 3 phone numbers and nobody
one
has
thing I
3.
like to tell people is only collect what you need to collect. Like,
Yeah.
even information, 3 phone numbers, do I need that, today? I'm not sure that I totally need that. I'm going to actually just remove one of these. And that's what it is. I start with that template. I just go through and I start removing what I don't need. It makes it super simple to be able to collect that. If I wanted to, then I could add in some custom questions though. And we're going to add a couple today. One about like a jersey, because we're going to, or a uniform. We're going to see a little bit later on the collecting of fees, how easy that makes it if people want to, say they need a new uniform. We're also going to add in a coupon code because as the last question we just had about discounts and maybe something that they wanted to provide for financial aid. So let's do that. We want to add, we're collecting demographic information. Just a little bit of a reminder, we're building this for sort of a recreational program. So not so much a tryout, an invite, and a lot more information, but I'm going to add, do you need to order a jersey? Let's just say you've had them in the past, it's common. I do it in my club. They only order uniforms when they need them. And I can put that in different sections. I've got a text type here. I could be a checkbox if I needed it to be. Do we want to make this one a checkbox, or what would be the best?
I think menu. Yeah, let's go menu.
All right, let's do that. And I'm going to put a couple options. Yes, I need one. Or no, I'm good. We'll make it conversational. That gives me a couple different options. I'm not going to share this. I don't think that I need to. I'll keep it private. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And we'll now see that that shows up. Do I need to order a jersey in our registration form? Cool. So one other one, which was a financial aid coupons, like making that available. Let's set that up as well. And let's call this one our financial aid code. And walk through setting up what this one looks like, because it takes a little more sort of planning for it.
Yeah, I like to stick the financial aid one under the parent information just because it's going to be more specific just to the family.
Okay.
And then we'll want to leave it as a text field.
Okay.
And so later on when we get to the section where we're actually going to set this up, those text fields are going to be case and space sensitive. And so we can create as crazy of a code as we want or as simple as a code as we want, but they're going to have to enter it in exactly how we're going to set it up for it. And then, this is definitely one that we want to keep private, just to the league. Nobody else on the team needs to know if somebody, required financial assistance or anything
Right.
like that.
Okay. So I can go ahead and save that. And what that's going to do is in our parent info now, we have our additional parent info financial aid code, which we're going to actually, I believe, call it an adjustment later on in our registration. We'll come back to that. Okay, so cool. We've got all of the data we need to collect as we talked about. This is great for just knowing who the players are, where are they going to go. I need to contact details. I'm getting all of that information and getting that into TeamSnap, saving us a ton of time. So we're going to acknowledge it. We're not going to get into this one. This is a membership verification that's set up with USA Lacrosse, USA Hockey. So if you're a member of or affiliate of either of those organizations, that's great for you. But we're going to jump ahead to our documents and looking ahead, documents and waivers. Maybe give just really quick, what's the difference between a document and a waiver, at least in this registration system?
Yeah, in our system, so document is where you can actually upload something. So this is a great spot for like proof of residence. If you're looking for like my club personally asks the girls to all upload their grades just to kind of see where they're at and things like that. So this is a spot that they can do that, where waivers is more of just you're acknowledging some language.
All right, so I want to create a document upload, and as you just said, like maybe this is something we had the kids sign, right? And they're not filling this out. So let's just call this player code of conduct. And this will, be required per participant because we're asking them to do it, right? And it's visible, I'm not going to make it visible, and I'm just going to save it. That will have them sign it. A parent will be completing that, downloading it, signing it, and uploading it, and it's now available inside the registration. That's pretty cool. All right, so a waiver though is a little bit different in that this one is more about viewing it in the registration and sort of making an acknowledgement that you've done that. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, yeah. This is a great one for, like those media consents, for overall code of conduct, financial agreements, things like that.
Sure, and so let's look at that example because now we got, mom or dad or parent or guardian filling this out. This might be a parent code of conduct. And I can place that right in there, copy paste. That's what I love to do. That one might be per registration, I suppose we could do that because why not? Same parents that's completing it. And then they can do some different signatures. Checkbox, initials, entering the name. Is there any particular reason I would select one over the other, or is it just kind of a preference?
It's really preference. Most people find if they enter their full name, it seems a little bit more binding, a little bit more professional. Checkbox and initials are fine too. It'll tell you what it's looking for, but
I'm going to go ahead and just do initials on this one because why not? And if I wanted to include the ability for them to just download the generic document, they could do that as well. I'm just going to save it that we have it. So we'll continue on. So we're collecting all of the information that we need about the kids and about their parents. We got the documents that they need to upload. We've got the waivers that they need to acknowledge. Let's get to what we had spent a lot of time talking about earlier, which is participant fees. So when I think participant fees, I'm thinking I'm just signing up for the season, but I think we can really use this for a lot of other things that we're collecting money for as well, right?
absolutely, yeah. So anything that you need to collect money through the organization. And so, obviously there are season dues. We can put the uniform stuff in here. If you're doing fundraisers and things like that, you can put that in here as well. It's so simple to be able just to collect everything at once and then not have to keep going back to the parents and be like, oh, and here's this one more thing and one more thing. So.
Right. So let's do this. We got our winter season. We're going to do a couple options. Let's say for this one, let's just do a 8U. This one might be co-ed or boys, girls, whatever we want to decide to be. We'll put an amount in there, and then capacity is, as you would imagine, if I put 50 in there, it sells 50 until it's closed, right? And it's no longer available. There's a couple cool things. We were talking about this yesterday. I want you to share. Like, I can set this up where if they select this option, and just for consistently, we'll call this 11U, they can be directly placed into that division for when I'm putting together my teams later on. That's got to be a time saver, especially for bigger clubs or leagues that are out there, right?
It is, yeah. You can, if you'd actually set up teams too, you can actually go down to the team level. So depending on how structured you are ahead of time, you can actually do basically all the work just through this one registration form.
That's excellent. And then since this was an age division, we can even have this display based on it understanding the birthday that we filled out. So you know the age group, right?
Yep.
U11, we're in 2022. I'm going to go out on a, well, you know what? I had a son just turned 11 the other day. So that's a 2011 born. So let's go ahead and say July 1, 2011, and then I can put it after that date and then before December 31st, right? And
Yep.
this would only show for the kids whose age group is in that range, huh? That can do
Yep.
the same from gender and custom fields, which I'm gonna hold for 1 second because I know I'm gonna want to show that with the jerseys, right? So I add that option and I save it, and obviously I'd want to add all of my levels, especially if I got different, prices, but I just set up the winner fee, right, for the season.
Yep. You're done. That's the winner fee.
Excellent. And one of the other things, imagine where like if you have a uniform, you're good. If you need to buy a new one or you need to buy something, that was the choice. In our example, we showed the jersey. I can actually set up to charge them if they select, I need to buy a jersey.
Yep.
We see it. Okay. We're going to add a new participant fee, and this one's going to be our jersey order. All right. I've got, and I might do a size here. Let's just say a large, $25. No capacity, because what do we care, right?
Right. If you want to buy 18 of them, buy 18 of them.
Awesome. And so this isn't like placing them specifically, but we want to only show this option if they selected the jersey, right?
Yeah.
All right, now walk me through and I'll do the clicking.
Yep. So do you need a jersey? Say yes. And then that one's going to show up if you say, yes, I want one. And actually for placement, because we don't need to have a roster created for this, you can actually go up and change that to yep, there. So that one's not going to create an extra roster profile. So you don't have excess junk kind of hanging out in your members tab.
I don't want any digital junk, that's for sure. So what we just did here was add a separate, and in this example, it was a jersey. It could be, do you need to buy a coupon book, or do you need to do something? And it was based on the questions that we previously asked. And if it's irrelevant for them, we're not showing it, not confusing it, right?
Yep. Yeah, so now this fee will only show up for those people who said yes. And then if you want to add additional options for the other sizes, then it'll show them they answered yes. That jersey order is going to show up, and then they just pick their size there and off they go.
That's perfect. So, all right, we just did that. So we just added our season fees. We'd have obviously probably more divisions there, more levels, different options of things that get added for the participant. So let's kind of keep going, but let's now move to form fees. And help me just really quickly, the difference between a participant fee and a form fee.
Yeah, participant fee is going to be for every single registrant. They're going to have to select fees, where the form fee is going to be something that you would want to charge just once. So if you have, say, like an out of residency fee that you charge, you want to do the fundraisers here. This is a great one for doing donations as well. So if you want to ask for people to donate to things, this is the spot to do it.
Yeah, that's a great one. And a donation. So I've done this in the past, and I've done it in multiple different ways. One thing that I learned is let people know what they're donating to, right? If you just put like a standard donation, my experience was you get some people to do that, but a lower amount. If you collect it for a particular purpose, and the one that I love is just to help support our financial aid program, and as a donation. And then I can add in some choices here. Again, this is another one, do what feels right for your group. I recommend, it says small donation here, but support a player. And that might be $150. I can add a choice. help a player, and maybe it's 50. Now, if I'm doing this, it's a required field, so I should probably include a no thanks with a 0 amount so that they can continue going through the process, right?
Yep.
But I think that this is a really important one and is a good one to help get your families who are signing up to be able to support some of those others, capital investments, equipment drive or whatever, but name it, say what you're using it for, and give some multiple options on that. Do you agree?
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. And the other option you have there is you can also make it an optional field, which,
Oh, sure.
Makes it so that maybe people skip over it a little bit more quickly. But, if you feel like the majority of people would rather not donate, then I think making it optional is a little less in your face about it. So
There we go. So I could do it optional and no 0, or if it is required to acknowledge it, then make sure I put a 0 just for those that it doesn't work for.
yeah.
Flexibility, that's always great. All right, so we got our participant fees, we got some form fees. We're going to go back, and there was actually a question from Stuart, I believe, about financial aid. Don't want to publicize a financial aid code. They have to ask for it, agree. I would say yes. Understand, like, put some requirements around your program, whether it's multiple years, or you fill out a form, an acknowledgement, or whatever that might be. So we did put that in our custom question, right? We put that in there. So let's go through what that looks like and putting that together. So I'm going to jump ahead to our adjustment. So
Yep.
talk me through the process of our financial aid coupon code that we put in the registration.
Great. So you're just going to click to create a new adjustment. Select the custom fields. This one was financial aid. There you go. And then this is where you're going to set that value. And again, these are going to be case and space sensitive. So you can get as crazy as you want with your code. You can make it as simple as you want. Anybody who has the code that enters it is going to get that discount. So that's where we tend to say, like, don't make it so simple that everybody can probably figure it out, but don't make it so complex that, it's kind of crazy. So.
Right, and the key here that I'm going to actually have it deduct from the amount, right? It's going to take that away because you could use adjustments to add fees as well, right? This could be a thing where I put this in there, I want to order additional, or I want a hat, or whatever that might be, just another way to be able to do that. So what I would do here then is take this code that I've decided, and to Stuart's point, this is what I would share with whoever has been approved to participate in that program. They would enter it in the registration and then get that discount off of their registration.
Yeah. Yep. And there's no limit here. So you can create, any level of discount that you want. So if you're doing like 50% for some people and 100% for others and 25%, or, you're giving coaches an extra $50 off, whatever it happens to be, you can create all those codes here.
Perfect. All right, so I jumped ahead on the adjustments. Let's jump back to our payment options though. And this is, something we talked about a little bit earlier with Rose and Corey as well. Online payments, of course, we're going to be collecting those, so I'm going to turn that on. Whether or not I allow offline payments, that's sort of a discussion. But let's talk about the ability to transaction fees, registration insurance. Let's talk about registration insurance, because this is something that became super popular and a lot of questions during the COVID craziness that all of us went through, right? And reg insurance, it created really uncomfortable sort of acknowledgments that maybe our refund policies weren't as tight or correct or appropriate as they should have been, right? So registration fee insurance, this is something built in clubs, leagues, anyone using this doesn't need to, even add it. It's just there and available as an option. Talk about that a little bit. When working with, organizations, how do they look at it? Is this a way to support kind of a refund policy, like for injuries and what's happening? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially from an organization standpoint, they're giving a spot to a kid. And so that means that if that kid then drops out later, they've now lost the income from that unless they can replace that person. And if this happens the first week of practices or games or the season, the chances of being able to pull in another kid off from a wait list or something like that is probably not as high,
Right.
because these kids have probably gone to a different program or something else. And so this kind of helps protect that organization from losing out on that income, but then also protects the parent and the player, because let's face it, they're kids, right? They're accident prone. Things happen. And my daughter just hurt her ankle and is out for soccer. So, it is what it is. But yeah, this allows them to have that protection too, of knowing if something happens, I paid, whatever it was, a couple dollars for the insurance, and now I'm going to get my $1,000 back, or, whatever the program cost was that they paid out. So
Yeah, that, you brought up a great point. Let's just say it's $500 for the season. I was a player, first year 10U hockey player, broke my leg. It was like second night of tryouts. And I was sort of like, it was before I got to a team, but if I was on a team and that happened, how much of that $500 is sort of already spent on my uniform, the tournaments you've budgeted? There's not a lot of extra income that probably isn't already accounted for. And so if you can't replace it, then you got to make it up somehow, or, the club's got to deal with that. So that registration insurance is there that parents can decide. Then you can augment your refund policy to say 100% up to a certain point, and then once season starts, by injury is provided by, insurance is available to protect that. That's a good point. Thank you.
yeah.
Oh, all right, so payment options. We talked about cards and ACH with the banks. Let's talk about setting up payment plans. So this hopefully is whoops, I got to make sure that I put on my online payments and jump in, and let's talk about like just setting up a payment plan. So affordability, accessibility, making this easy. Let's set this up and what some of our options are. I'm guessing you're going to say if the higher you go, the more flexibility in payments. Is that your recommendation?
Yeah, absolutely. If your fees are a couple $100s, breaking it up over 2 or 3 payments is probably great. But when you're talking $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for a season, spreading that out, especially if it's over a year, is probably the best. We do max out at a year from the date of checkout, so you can't go 4 or 5 years down the road of making them pay, but we do have quite a bit of flexibility there. Under the frequency, you'll see that there's, jump up there. Yep, 3 options. So this is twice monthly, monthly, or custom. Custom is probably great. This is one that I recommend you definitely check in with your treasurer on to see, do they want to process and reconcile payments daily, or would it be better if they just did them in chunks? If they would prefer to do it in chunks, custom's definitely the way to go.
Right, and this would allow me, as we talked a little bit about earlier, to sort of dictate specifically when these draws are going to be. So I like to be sensitive to the 15th and 31st, right? So let's go on the the 19th. I can add any number of installments on here now, and I'm sort of creating my plan based on timing. It's just not every 30 days or every 31. That may cause a little bit of a crunch. So this is just a thoughtful design construction and how you put your plans together to make it not only affordable but timing correct. You have that flexibility to decide.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, the other nice thing is you can set a custom deposit. And so this is a great one too, where like our club, we know that we have uniform costs and certain things like at the very beginning of the season. And so we need $75 per kid just to cover those uniform costs that are going to happen. So we can say like, we want our custom deposit to be $1,000 or $100, and then the rest of this can be split out over 5, 6, however many payments that we decide we're going to split it up.
It's a great point. So using that to strategically manage your cash flow requirements to bring in for sort of pre-season and early payments, push the other ones out when maybe you don't need it, just to, it's sort of a win-win for everybody in that. I am going to try and close this by the top of the hour. So let's keep rolling through. Our last sort of area here is sort of instructions, activation, settings that I have put in place. Registration open and close. So if you're closing at 11:59 p.m. on a Friday night, I'm way already sleeping hopefully by then. So I can set that though, and I don't need to worry about it. I can also dictate a lot of the instructions that appears. They're navigating through the different pages and different sections. So I'd encourage you to check that out. But something you talked about earlier is preview, right? Like is an important part, getting into the preview. And this allows me to be able to, register myself or register the player, go through, try it out, and make sure that everything's working correctly.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a great spot where you can come in and you can see like, oh, I didn't turn off all the phone fields that I didn't necessarily want, or I didn't have this, or oh, the board asked for this specific type of information and I didn't get that added correctly. And so this again just allows you to see exactly what your members are going to see as they come in to sign up. And so it gives you kind of that peace of mind of knowing exactly what the experience is.
Right. So I've got that. I'm happy with it. I'm moving forward. I'm launching it. I'm putting it on my website, and we're preparing another webinar for a website. You can see exactly what that looks like. But I go in, I start collecting some signups, and this is a summary that we have. I just want to show the report that is across really all of my programs. I can filter that down. We're doing one program. I could look at everything in totality for my organization. I can break it down into one program. If I want to just see past due items or anything else, I can quickly click on that. But this is a summary of everything going on in the organization, right? Program by program, I can set up a bank account unique to those if I need that. I can restrict access if I need to do that. But if I'm the director of the club, I can see everything in one place. That's what we're able to see here. And that's, I don't know about you, that's what I've heard from customers and users, that's kind of a big deal. That was one thing when the new release of clubs and leagues here, that really was something important for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my daughter's soccer club, we're still on V1 Classic, and I keep saying, I'm just going to migrate you people because I miss not having these overarching views.
That's right. I'm going to just go ahead and I can look up a person to see those examples and see their specific payments. All right, super cool. Well, April, we're getting close to close here. I'm gonna go back to our slideshow really quick and just, a reminder, like the registration we talked about today, this is just a continuation, another part of our multi-program management, which allows you to really organize your programs for your club or your league, your organization, to bucket and group all of that together so you get one view, but also be able to have the flexibility to organize your programs for access, bank accounts, everything else you need. From payment rates, we'd love for you to reach out and talk with you about those payments in your registration. Many of our customers see that they can get 20-30% savings over other payments. And a reminder, Amex is included in our rates, and our ACH will help you save some money by transferring off the savings that you get with those payments at a much lower rate. And also the TeamSnap mobile app. We haven't talked about it today. Coaches love it, parents love it. We've never had more teams signing up and using that app. So some of the things your organization is really gonna love. Tyler, our producer, I know, put a link in the handouts to the checklist, but just a reminder, in 7 days, you can get that registration going. Plan, organize everything you need on your first day, research, select your payment or your platform, set up your payments accounts, build your registration, publish to your website, start watching those signups come in, and on the last day, you can take that one off because you're just gonna relax. You got everything that you need to do to get going with that. So on behalf of every one of the other presenters that were here, thanks to the panel that was here, I appreciate it. We'll be sending out a replay so that you can go back and watch this, or if you weren't able to make it or had to leave, you can see that as well. But I want to thank everyone for their time. April, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I may have you on the next one. And everyone, reach out. If you've got questions, you can talk to your customer success manager. If you don't know who they are, csm@teamsnap.com. Even if you don't know, or if you don't have one yet, we'll help you get set up on that. So thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you learned something and look forward to seeing all of these best practices help your organization be successful. Take care.